by trying to charge those rates and put those out there for other brokers to accept. But that's not fair. That's not the rate that it should be. So if you are accepting lower rates than what it's supposed to be, then you're messing up for other people as well. Um, not even when you first start, but just period. Even if you're already in business and you are going with a different broker and you're choosing someone else to do business with that's different than the broker that you've already been using, you want to make sure that you're getting your money right. So that's important, but you don't want to be so desperate, so to speak, that you just accept anything they're giving you because at that point you're not getting what you deserve. You're not getting what you're worth, and you are kicking out this money for payroll for yourself or for your drivers. You are kicking out this money for if you take on a lease for a vehicle or if you buy it outright, whichever one you decide to do. You are taking on these expenses, so you want to make sure that you are recouping the most that you can for your money. So when it comes to, we'll start with broker rates first, and then we'll go to private rates, and then we can go open up the floor for questions and for Q&A. So that being said, for broker rates, when you do your research, I'm sorry, like I said last week, you all would have 3 different devices here, so I'm trying to make sure I see all you all's questions. But when it comes to broker rates, when you do your research, that's the first thing, like I said last week. You want to do your research to know which brokers are in your area that provide trips for the states that you are in or your business is in, right? So once you do your research, you've picked the broker that you want to work with. Now you are in conversation in terms of rates and contract. So they're either going to send you a contract that already has preset rates and you can negotiate from there, or they're going to ask you what are your rates and try to talk you down or just go with what you give them, right? Either way, you want to make sure you do your research on the market. So you want to say, okay, well, first of all, is this a broker that gives you rates or is this a broker that allows you to set and negotiate your own rates? That's number one. Number two, after you have identified that, I always say my rule of thumb is always going at least 65 to 75 cents more than what the market rate is, right? So if I know that this broker, their average payout is $1.75 to $1.90 for an ambulatory client, right? I know this. How do I know this? I have done our research by contacting the broker, and you will get people that work within the company that you're looking for or looking to work with that have a heart and they can talk to you and tell you what the average payout is. You can talk to other providers within your network or within your area that are willing to share this information with you because a lot of us are, and let what this contract typically goes for their average rate, right? So you find this out. You want to jump anywhere between 65 to 75 cents when you are negotiating, and this is why I say 65 to 75 cents. If you jump a whole dollar or a whole $1.25, they may overlook your profile. They may say, okay, this company is a little out of our budget. They have the vehicles that we need. They have the service area that we're looking for providers in, but their rates are a little high for what we can provide at this time. They'll either A, not take you in, or B, take you in but put you at the bottom of the totem pole. And what I mean by that is you may be one of the last companies that they call for an assignment, but you will get called. Now, you can go ahead and at that point you'll have your dollar or $1.25, and I say this to be like your higher rates, right? So you'll have your higher rates or higher rate in providers, and you'll be the last company they'll call. That's not a bad thing though, because a lot of times they can't find providers to fulfill certain assignments. So they will call you and you'll get your amount that you have set in your contract. However, depending on the volume that you're looking for with your clients, you may not get that many clients in the beginning because you're too expensive for the broker, right? So it just depends on what your business model is and how fast or how slow you can wait out with accepting trips at that rate. Now, when it comes to negotiating for like a quote, right? Say for instance, you have a broker that allows you to get these assignments, and they contact you for something that may be outside of your service area, right? When that happens, which happens pretty often, you want to make sure that you have some type of rule of thumb for quoting trips. I'll give you an exact example in terms of what happened today with my company. So one of my brokers, they needed a trip. I'll give you two examples actually because it happened two different times today. But they needed a trip fulfilled, and it was outside of our coverage area. However, it is an area that is near our coverage area, so we can do it. But we're going to quote you for a trip, right? You don't have providers out in that area. Um, we want more than what our contracted rates are because we are going outside of our coverage area, right? So, because we want more, because we deserve more, we're going to put a little tax on it. So, I said a certain amount. I said 300 for the trip. Now, when I did my math and my quoting, and I'll tell you how I did this after I finish this part right here. When I did my math and my quoting, the trip was going to be 263 based on what I did for our quoting, our formula, right? Now, typically, because it is a broker, their job is to keep as much money in-house as possible. So you can't be mad at them for doing business. Business is business. However, you have your job to do for your business as well. So, with that being said, you always want to make sure you sprinkle some type of tax on the rates that you all are asking for, because the broker is always going to find a way to try to lowball you or meet you at a lower price point. So, if we're talking about contract rates for your contract with the broker, and your ideal rate for a wheelchair client may be $2.15, and they have a known reputation for taking on providers, and they don't really budge more than $2.05 or $2 flat rate, right? So you come in and you want $2.15 at least. So what you would do is you would let them know, hey, I have this rate at $2.30 per mile. They're going to come back and they're going to want you to come down. Of course, can you go down? Yes. But you don't want to go down lower than what your ideal rate is. So you always want to put an extra tax on it so that whenever they do come down, it eventually comes to the point of the price that you're looking for. So, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but going back to the situation today that we faced directly, there was a trip that was being quoted, and based on the formula that we have, it would have been $263. I added a tax and brought the tax to $300. So I took it back to the broker and I said, hey, we can do this trip for $300. Now they came back to me and said, well, can you do it for $250? We could do it for $250. But if I do it for $250, that's going to be lower than the rate that I already have for that is the original rate for the formula that we had, which is $263. I don't want to go lower than $263. Why? Because that is the amount that I truly, truly want for my rate. So because I started at $300 and they came back at $250, where do you think we met up at? $275. That's how much we're getting for this trip. We're getting $275. Now, it's still less than the $300 that I asked for originally, but it's $12 more than the $263 that I would have got had I just given them my original price. Had I given them the original price of $263, they definitely would have gotten me at maybe $250 or less. They could have come back and said, okay, well, can you do it for $240? Can you do it for $230? But we settled at $275. I got more than I wanted for the quote, and they got less than I originally asked for. So a win is a win for both parties involved, right? Okay. So any questions on that in terms of quoting or trip quotes, please put those in the chat, because like I said, you don't know who is on this live and who may have the same questions as you. So please make sure that you are, being attentive to that and being fair to that, okay? All right, so going on to the next slide in terms of rates. Um, I said 65 to 75 cents higher than the market rate. Now, of course, you can jump higher than the 65 to 75 cents. I just feel that that is a safe number when you are trying to negotiate with the brokers, because the reason being, you have competitors. You have other providers that are trying to get on with these same brokers that you are on or trying to get on with as well, right? You're not the only one. So they can overlook you and go to the next. Now, it depends on where you are in the journey of your business. Are you in your portfolio of cash flow? Are you having a good amount of private pay clients where you can sustain without actually getting on with the broker right now? Can that be one of like your last options? Or do you need this broker? Do you need to get on with this broker so that you can generate some income because you have started this business and you're not generating income right now, right? Which one is it? Now, when I'm saying that, I'm not telling you to settle by any means. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you may have to bend a little bit to see the results that you want to see starting off, right? So just keep that in mind, um, because it is one of those things that some providers kind of bite themselves in the foot by jumping so high out there when it comes to the rates, okay? All right. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going back to my notes, you all, to make sure I'm not um, missing anything. Also, too, when it comes to doing your research for brokers, you want to make sure that you know what is their policy for sending you trips outside of your coverage area, right? Because reason being, um, there are two brokers that we are contracted with that they do not do call for quote trips. So if you see a trip that is outside of your coverage area and they're sending it to you, that is important to know, because number one, you could be accepting trips that you don't necessarily need to cover, and that could hinder you because you may look up and say, oh, wait, I didn't know I did this. I didn't know I accepted this. I didn't have a different quote on it. Now you have deadhead miles, and you also have the extra expense of whatever time it takes to get to that area, payroll, as well as fuel costs, right? So you want to make sure you know which contracts accept call for quotes and which contracts don't. Also, too, when it comes to the rates, you want to see how often can you negotiate or renew your rates. Is it annually? Because most contracts you can revisit annually to see if you can change your rates or upgrade your rates. Within this past year and a half, I know you all, we have been extremely affected by the cost of gas prices. So if I'm accepting trips, if I got on with the broker in 2019 and then in 2021 we're going through this detrimental fuel cost spike, then I need to revisit my rates within my contract. I should not still have the same rates that I have from 2 years ago, because the market is not reflecting 2 year ago prices, right? They're not. They have extra amendments they have to make. So with that being said, you need to do your part too. Make sure that you can renew your contract, and how often can you revisit your rates, because that is important. You don't want to get locked into something and you look up, 5 years go by and you're with the same rates. At that point, you've left a whole lot of money on the table. So make sure you know what the renewal terms are going into the game with this broker, because you want to make sure that you refresh your rates annually at least. Okay? At least. Alright. So that has been for broker pay. We spent 20 minutes on broker pay. Alright, well, let's segue into private pay. So with private pay, it's a lot different because you're not negotiating as much. You set your rates, and it is what it is. You can say I said what I said. pretty much, because that you're not negotiating with a middleman, which is what you consider the broker to be. You're not negotiating with a middleman to get your rates. Your rates are your rates. When you're taking your contract and you've already, been in talks with the director of the facility, the property manager of the facility, the executive director of the facility, whoever is in charge, right? When you've already been in talk with them, and you're pretty much at the final step, they pretty much know that they want you as a provider for their facility. You don't have to oversell yourself. Um, Also, when it comes to private pay, you are competing still, but once you make it to the level or the stage where you're talking in the conversations of contract signing, you're pretty much at the finish line. So, how do you get to the finish line and how do you negotiate these rates? Well, with this, you want to definitely do your research with the market of competitors around you. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure where you all are based, but I spoke with someone who was from Tampa yesterday, right? So it wouldn't really be beneficial for someone in Tampa to call someone in Atlanta to say, hey, what are your rates in your market there? Because we have totally different markets, right? So what you want to do is you want to call, and I say at least five. Five is my number for like quoting, or we talked about this last week. You all weren't on the call last week. And again, I'm sorry I'm going back and forth because I have the different devices here for the live. But if you all weren't on last week, I said 5 is one of my favorite numbers to go by when it comes to quoting or getting research, because I feel like after 5, you would definitely have a good idea of what you're looking at. So what I recommend for doing your research for private pay is to make up a scenario. You can say, hey, I am in need of, and I always say do more than 10 miles, because 10 miles is typically what you get included in the rate of the transport. So if you really want to know what they're charging per mile outside of the inclusion rate, you want to go more than the rate that is included in mileage. So I say go more than 10 miles. I say do at least 15. So you want to give them an address that is 15-mile radius, and you want to do a round trip. Okay, so you would call, you would give the NEMT company that you are cold calling a scenario where you need transportation for 15 miles. You can do that with any service level. You can say it's for ambulatory, wheelchair, or stretcher. I like to do it for all three because it gives you a true idea of what they're charging with their rates. Now, after you call at least 5 companies and you get their rates for the different service levels, and I say all three, I'm sorry, because we offer all 3 levels of service. We offer ambulatory, wheelchair, and stretcher. But let me go back to that, because if you're not offering all 3, then you don't necessarily need to know all 3 quotes right now. But if you are aspiring to jump to a different service level, then it would be wise of you to understand what the rates are for all 3 different service levels: ambulatory, wheelchair, and stretcher. Okay? So I like to say get the rates for whatever service level you're at that time. So you would call these 5 companies, you would give this scenario, you would get the average rates, and you would have a list of the 5 companies and what they charge. After you have that list and you have that idea, you pretty much have an average that you can go by on what companies in your area are charging, right? Now, you look at this list, you look at the list, you say, okay, I got my list. What is going to set me apart from that company, from that company, from that company, from that company, from that company? Because as a client, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. If I'm going to spend more money with a certain company that's offering the same amount of service as this other company, why am I going to spend more with you, right? What sets you apart that allows me to spend more with you? Do you offer different service hours? Do you have, different vehicle spectrums? What is it that is going to make me spend the money with you versus another company? So you want to make sure that you're taking that into consideration, okay? So once you have that list, you'll have the five companies. You can see how much you can jump in terms of cents or dollars for the rates, and how much you may want to come down from what you may have originally thought. I'm not sure, but that is something to consider. Okay, give me 1 second because we got a question in the chat. Let me see. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I got a few questions in here. All right. So rate formula. That was the first. We have two of those questions. What is the rate formula? Okay. So rate formula. Um, it depends on. I started off with my deadhead miles at 60 cents per mile. This was maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it jumped. Right now we are at 85 cents per 85 cents per mile for deadhead miles. So say for instance, in particular the trip, let me go back over here. The trip today that we had in particular, it was uh, no, that's not it. I'm trying to find. Okay, here it is. All right. So the trip here, it is a 9 mile trip. It is a wheelchair trip. Um, the trip, it had, I can't remember off the top of my head right now the exact dead mileage, but whatever the dead mileage was, oh hi Larry, whatever the dead mileage was, I did it by 85 cents. So I quote my dead miles at 85 cents per mile at this point, right? So I did the mileage, 85 cents per mile, whatever the deadhead miles were. So I take the address that I'm picking them up from based off the address for our base location. That's where we start at for our quotes because that's where our office location is, right? So we do the address from our base location and then going to their location. Deadhead miles. So for those who are in the chat or on live that do not understand what deadhead miles are, deadhead miles are the miles that you drive without anybody in your car. And they're called deadhead because you pretty much have no one in your car. It's deadhead. You're driving to pick up that person, so you have no one in your vehicle, and at that point, you're not really on your way to the appointment or on your way with the client, but you do have that mileage that you're accruing from that transport. So you want to make sure that you're charging for that. With that being said, I do at least 85 cents per mile for the deadhead miles. Now, some people do more, some people do less. For me, right now, I've found that rate to be pretty comfortable. When gas goes back up again, we'll go back up. We go up with each increase that we get. And honestly, when it comes back down, I haven't gone back down. Sorry, but I haven't gone down since the 85 cents. Um, some providers they do go back down, but I see it as, hey, if the broker is able to jump from my 60 cents per mile per dead mile to 85 cents per dead mile, why am I going to go back to 60 cents per dead mile just because the gas may have come down? No, the broker has already shown me they can afford me at this rate, so I'm going to keep this rate, and I'm not going back down. And if gas goes up again, then I'm going to go up again. And if I see the broker is still, paying out the money for that rate, I'm going to stay at that rate. I'm not going to go back down. It's a business, right? So take that into consideration. In terms of, I'm sorry. So after we have the deadhead miles, we already know what they're going to pay us based on the trip from the regular contracted rates, right? So I took my deadhead miles, that's 85 cents per mile, times it by 2, because it's round trip. So let's just say it was 45 miles there, 45 miles back, that's 90 miles round trip of deadhead miles, right? So I do 90 times 0.85. Whatever that is, I'll add that to what the trip is automatically going to pay out for the contracted rates. So deadhead miles plus contractor rates, and I get my number, my figure. Okay, so I got the number at for 263 by doing it that way, and I said, okay, well we have $263 that I'm able to get from this trip. I'm going to add my own tax to it, and I raised it up to $300. They came back. They said, "Can we do it for 250?" I said, "No, I can't do it for 250 because that's $50 off what I'm giving you all, right? So I need at least 275." So I was able to get the 275. Okay. I hope that helps in terms of formula. If you have some questions about that, please put them in the chat for me. Okay. All right. It says, what are the starting rates for non-wheelchair clients, and what time frame to receive payments from Medicare? Also, what's the best way to get private rates, and do they have medical marketing companies? Okay, so that is multiple questions in one. Let me break it down. So, what are the starting rates for non-wheelchair clients? Okay, so this goes back to location. I don't know where you are. Which location are you in? Because I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and what our rates are here could be different from the rates that you have where you're located. So I'm not sure where you're located, but you want to make sure that you do your research wherever you're located, because I could tell you, hey, the starting rate for brokers in our area is on average $1.25 to $1.45 per mile. Well, you may be in an area where it's $1.15 per mile, and you walk in the door with your chest poked out like, hey, I want $1.35 per mile. And they look at you and say, okay, well, we got 200 provider applications that we are going through right now, and nobody wants that much money, so we're going to go to the next company. You've wiped yourself out of that deal, right? So I don't know what the rates are for your location or where you're located, but you definitely want to make sure you do your research in terms of ambulatory clients. I would recommend, like I said, calling at least 5 companies and giving a scenario to see what they're charging. And that's for that's for private pay. Now for broker pay, we can, like I said, you can get in the chat, you can get in the group, and find someone that is within the state that you're in to get an idea of what the average is, and add 65 to 75 cents from there, because they're going to try to talk you down. Okay, the second part of that question is what is the what is the time frame to receive payments from Medicare? Okay, so it depends in terms of when you say Medicare, what are you talking about? Because broker, depending on which broker that you sign up with, it may be a workers' comp broker. It could be a Medicaid, Medicare broker. Are you talking about getting paid directly from Medicare? Which one are you speaking about? I see that you said you were based in Conyers. Okay, so I can give you, because we're in Georgia together. On average, your ambulatory rates are going to be anywhere between $1.20 to $1.40, based on the broker that you are pitching to, and that's for ambulatory. Now, I have seen $1.75, but that was only from maybe two brokers. So I can say you can jump up as high as $1.75 for sure for ambulatory clients. Okay. And I'm sorry, the last part of the question was, what's the best way to get private rates, and do they have medical marketing companies? Okay, so the best way to get private pay, there is no one size fits all for that question. I'm sorry. Oh, Zach is in here. Hey, Zach. So there is no one way to get private pay clients. You are a walking billboard for your business. When you or your drivers drop off a client, they need to have a card, a brochure, something with your information on it with each client. And I was just telling somebody this yesterday. You never know. Those things, they float around. They may go. They may not be in the hands of the person that you gave it to, but they're floating around to people that need your services, and you never know who that person is, right? So I say that to say, um, when you're dropping these clients off to places that you can do private pay at, you're dropping them off to the dialysis center, you're dropping them off to the clinics, you're dropping them off to the hospitals. That's your time. If you have some time in between to go inside and talk to someone and say, hey, can I drop some flyers here? Can I drop some business cards here? Because how are they going to know about you? If you're already going to these facilities anyway, why are you not taking some time to go inside to drop off some of your material so they can know about your company? That's the best way that I've seen. Like I said, there's no one way off. Now, you asked about marketing companies. Yes, there are marketing companies out there. A lot of things are digital. We are in the age of digital, of course. I made one of the biggest mistakes when I first started off, literally going door to door to post flyers. That's not that effective, okay? And you waste your money and you waste your time. When you're first starting off, you need to keep as much money in house as possible. And that's just from a real standpoint, because every dollar that you get is going to go back into your business. You say, oh, okay, I have one van, and you see how much money you're making with one van, and you say, oh, okay, well, I need to get two. What about, how much money can I make with the second van, right? You think about that. So every dollar matters going back into your business. Word of mouth in this industry is still one of the best forms of marketing, because what better way is it than to have someone in a wheelchair tell someone else in a wheelchair about this amazing service that they got from this provider, and you should ride with them because they treated me so well, and I got to my appointment on time, the driver drove well, I felt safe. That's the best form of marketing. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure each client that your business services and touches, that they have your information. Hold on, Zach has something. All right, Zach says ambulatory riders average broker provider work is $12 to $15 per trip in Conyers, Georgia. PM me if you're needing market analysis. Big need in Georgia. Yes. Okay. So if you were not on the call last week, Zach is a seasoned provider in Athens, Georgia. He's on the call right now. For my person here in Conyers, Zach says to message him, because if you need a market analysis, he will be able to help, and there is a big need for Georgia. So if you all are not familiar with Zach, he is in the NEMT Facebook group that we're pretty much all in. Okay? His name is Zachary Clemens. So make sure that you reach out to him with your questions in regards to market analysis. And also, if you are already set up, I'm pretty sure Zach may also need some providers in that area for some coverage. So definitely reach out. Okay. All right. So what was your next question? All right. No problem at all. All right. So what's a good starting rate for wheelchair for private pay in Georgia? That's a good question. Where are you located in Georgia? I need you all to let me know where you are located. We did this last week. Like I said, we all are in different markets, and we all are trying to build something together. So we all can help each other, and it will be a big help in knowing where you all are located. So I would say, honestly, a fair rate to kind of get yourself in there would be anywhere between $2.95 to $3.15 per mile. That gap there. Zach, what would you say for a fair rate? Would you say that would be fair for wheelchair private pay starting off? Load fee. You want to make sure your load fee, I would say at least $50. $50 load fee. Okay, Jonesboro. Okay, Zach, we got another provider in here. They are in Jonesboro. So, you got somebody on the south side. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, Zach, per mile after the included rate. So if you're doing $100, that gets your load fee plus 8 to 10 miles round trip, and then you'll do the $2.90 to $3.05 per mile after you go over the included rate. I'm sorry, you all. Zach was asking a question. I might be confusing some of you all. No problem at all. No problem. Okay, let me see. We got some Georgia people in here. All right. Trying to make sure I didn't skip a question. 90 load or 70? Okay, so Zach says $90 load or $70 load, which is Zach, you're meaning for round trip or you're meaning per load? Okay, and Zach was saying for the mileage, that sounds like a fair rate, but again, it depends on your market. It depends on where you are located. Okay. I have another person on Facebook because we're getting Facebook and Instagram. All right. What's a good starting rate for private pay in Houston, Texas? I already have a kid's transportation. However, I'd be transitioning once school is out, but I'm nervous. Okay. Hey, Sharita. So I'll be honest. I am not 100% sure of a good starting rate in Houston because I'm based in Atlanta. However, we do have a lot of providers in Houston. I would recommend reaching out to Lamar Artist. He's in the Facebook group, the NEMT Facebook group, and he is in charge of MedX, and he is based in Houston. He actually will have a better idea of the market analysis over there than I would because, again, I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm not sure what the average market rate starting off is in Houston. I highly recommend cold calling at least 5 facilities. That way you can have an idea of, what they are charging for their private pay. Zach, he recommended closer for a round trip for $70 for a low fee. Again, it depends on the market analysis. So we're putting these numbers out here, but I want you all to take this for your homework tonight is to take this away and see what is your market area, what is your market rate for your area for the service level that you're currently at. And that could be for ambulatory, wheelchair, or stretcher. Sorry. All right, everyone, just a heads up. We got about 15 more minutes left on this live before we commit for the night. So I just want to make sure I put that out there. Don't forget to throw your questions in here if you have not joined them just yet. Ask them just yet. Ooh. Okay. All right, so while we get some more questions on the chat, I do want to go over a couple of things because we had gotten, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little distracted over here. Because of how this week has gone, so from the feedback that we got from last week's live was really good. Thank you all for that. But I do want to make sure that we're staying on the same page and we're helping each other out. Now, if you have your questions, please make sure that you throw them in the chat because, like I said, you never know who may have the same questions as you. And we just got another one. So before I go to what I was about to say, let me see. Okay, for Medicaid brokers, how long does it take to receive payments? It depends on the contracting terms that broker has. But that's something that you definitely would want to know off the jump from that broker. If they do a net 21, a net 30, net 45. Net 30 is what I see on average. However, I have seen net 45 and I do see net 21. So it just depends on, you know, with that contract or that broker, how they pay out. But that's something that you want to make sure that you gather in doing the research for the uh, the broker. And you need to know that because, again, you may have to go with a factoring company to help you get your payments faster. It just depends because you don't want to be waiting on your money. If you perform these services today, you may not get paid for 3 weeks, for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks. It just depends. So you want to make sure that you understand your payment terms so that you'll know if you have enough money in your account to cover payroll until you get that money back. What do you need to do to make sure that your business can sustain until you recoup those funds? Okay? So that's important. No problem at all. No problem at all. Okay. So, like I was about to say, we got some good feedback from last week, but I want to make sure we're all staying on the same page in terms of how we're operating. So each Wednesday we will be having a live. Last week, like I said, we talked about how to get approved with brokers and the different insurance types. This week we talked about broker rates and private pay rates, also with quoting for trips. Next week, I'm not sure what the topic will be just yet, but we will know, and I'll throw it in the Facebook group. Make sure that you have joined that NEMT Girl Facebook group because that's how we go live on Facebook. In terms of Instagram, we have that NEMT Girl Instagram page. So please share with anyone that you are aware who is thinking about starting a business or who is in business and may need some direction in terms of where to go. They've just gotten started and they're not really sure on how to go about things. Let them know about this community that we're starting here so they can join in, okay? As we dig deeper and we go further, we will be having others join the live who have things that they can offer in terms of equipment and insurance questions, things that I may not even be able to provide you myself. We have other experts that can come in and give you that expertise. So make sure you let them know about us, okay? It's going to be every Wednesday. 8:30 is the start time, but just tonight we had some technical difficulties, and I'm so sorry about that. But thank you all for still joining in, and I do hope that you all can run the playback on Instagram. It will be posted on there as well. I did just get another question on the live. Let me see. Do you need a release of liability for private pay? So when it comes to private pay, you are setting your terms. You set your terms in the contract that you are shopping around at these facilities. And so once you go over the contract with the facility, they may have certain things that they require you to add into that contract. I'm not sure, but that's something that you would be able to go through in depth with them. And after you send that contract and they sign it, that's you all's agreement. Now, the broker, they have their own terms that you have to abide by and you have to follow. However, when you're doing private pay, you are setting your own terms. So they can't tell you what you have to put unless it is something that the facility is requiring. And you want to make sure you're following the facility's guidelines as well as your state guidelines before you go ahead and send that information out. Because private pay is a bit different. For the broker, you have that middleman, you have that person that is pretty much the gatekeeper of your money. But when it comes to private pay, you're more so in charge of your own business and your terms. As long as you're following your state guidelines and you and the facility have worked out whatever they need you to have within that contract, you're good to go. Absolutely. Better late than never. So I appreciate that positivity for that piece. Also, too, a few of you all have been dropping questions throughout the week on Facebook, and I really do appreciate that. However, I can't attend to you all just randomly throughout the week. I'm still running business as well, so I want to make sure that you all understand that because I don't want you to feel like I'm ignoring you all, anything like that, but I do want to make sure that you all are getting your questions answered. So, if you're not aware, on my website at thatnemtgirl.com, you can book a call where you get your one-on-one questions answered in depth. I have a free 15-minute option, and I do have an option for 45 minutes where a service fee is attached to it. It just depends on how much assistance that you need at the time. But with either one, the 15 minutes or the 45 minutes, I highly recommend when you do book that you have your questions written down so that you get the most out of your time. Okay? Because we can't go over. Still got to make sure the day-to-day operations with Lilia's Enterprise stays intact, right? So please make sure that we're keeping that at the forefront and being mindful of time, okay? Now we have about 9 more minutes, so I can see we got 2 questions. What's the starting rate for private pay in South Dakota? Okay, so if you are a little late to the party, hello, thank you for joining. But unfortunately, I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. So for market analysis, you definitely want to make sure that you're doing your research in the state that you are based in. What I recommend is calling at least 5 companies and giving them a scenario that of the service level that you are in need of transport. So you could call a company that is within South Dakota and say, hey, I am in need of wheelchair transportation. I also recommend going at least 15 miles with that cold call mileage because most companies, if they do it right, you will have an inclusion rate of mileage. So you would say, okay, $100 for a wheelchair ride, and you get 5 or 10 miles included, right? So with that, you want to make sure you go above that because then you want to see what they're charging at their per mile rate once they go over the inclusion rate. So I recommend calling at least 5 companies, giving them a scenario for a cold call, and being able to get an average rate listing of how much providers in your area are charging. Oh man, my water. Okay, that's all right. We're almost wrapping up anyway. So let's see. What's this question we have here? All right, someone asked me if I have an MPI number, and I said yes, but I have no clue what that is. Okay, so the National Provider Identifier, that is the number that your business uses for anything directly related for Medicaid, Medicare. You will be able to bill directly with that MPI number. However, you would have to be approved within the Medicaid, Medicare system directly to do so. Also, too, for being directly contracted with insurance companies directly is when that is, useful. But for brokers, it's not required. For private pay, it's not required, but it is a good thing to have in case you may need it. No problem. All right. Okay, let me go back to my sheet, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. All right, so we talked about that. All right. All right, I think I covered that. Now, also on my website, you can go check out, you can run back the playbacks of the YouTube videos that I have listed there so far. You can, you can run the playback on the videos that we have there so far, and you will be able to see, any information that you may need assistance with that you see posted there is on there. Also have documents listed that you may need. We have the private pay contract. We have the broker list where you have all the brokers listed. Different insurance companies for the insurance coverage list that we talked about last week. So there are a lot of good things on the site that can help you in your beginning stages of your journey. Just let me know. There are also things that may not be on there that you are in need of that I can add for you all. So please let me know that as well. Okay? All right. So I have been kicked off of this live on my personal page, and I believe it's about to kick me off here. So before it kicks me off, I'm going to wrap it up for the night. I thank you all for joining. Please make sure you check back in next week, next Wednesday. It will be starting at 8:30, okay? If we have any further technical difficulties or anything changes, I will let you all know. But as of now, we will be back same place, different time. What time is going to be 8:30? Okay. Make sure you have your questions, and I will be posting what we will be talking about next week, at least by Sunday. You all will know what we're talking about for next week, at least by Sunday. Okay. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. I hope that you all took away some good gems for tonight. Okay. All right. See you all next week. Bye bye.